Hello and welcome to Section 7. I hope you're enjoying the course so far. We're going to learn about and build some exciting things in this section, so I hope you're ready. We're going to cover associations in more detail in this section. Namely, we'll deal with a many-to-many association. But we'll also learn how to implement automated testing while adding this new many-to-many association in our application. And the feature we'll be adding to our application in this section is categories. So right now we have articles, we have users, but the articles don't belong to any categories. We'll add unit tests and build our category model. We'll add functional tests and integration tests as we build our controller and our views and how the features work. We'll use Minitest for testing, which is the default Rails testing framework that ships with Rails out of the box, so we don't have to install anything new for this. The most important thing though is that starting in this section, you'll be part of a story. And for the rest of the course, you're going to be an active participant in this story. And the story goes something like this. From now on, you are a junior Rails developer, since you have solid understanding of Ruby on Rails already. And in the story, you have just started working at a startup which got lucky with a product called AlphaBlog. It launched the product and it picked up like wildfire. Lots of users signed up. They started writing a lot of articles. It got some funding and a lot of fun things happened. So now this startup wants to add this categories feature to their articles. And since now they have a lot of users and articles and a lot of data, they realize that they need to use automated testing while adding this feature. This is great news for you, since this will give you an opportunity to gain some experience with automated testing. So without further delay, let's move to day one at your job. So welcome to day one, where the account team has explained what feature they want to add, and then the design team has gone ahead and built this ERD, which is an entity relationship diagram, and is going to explain this to you. So what's going on here is you currently have an articles table, and you need to associate articles with categories. So when an article is created, let's say it's about sports. When you create the article, you want to ensure that it's correctly tagged under the category of sports. So when you want to look up articles in category sports, the article shows up. Similarly, that category of sports will have multiple articles in it, okay? And then you can have other articles that have the category of sports also. So notice how a relationship is forming where you have multiple articles belonging to one category and then multiple categories that one article can have. You could have an article that talks about sports, but also about sports-related injuries, for example. Then that would belong to a sports category, and let's say there's another healthcare category also. So you have what's called a many-to-many association. An article can have many categories that they belong to, then a category can have many articles. Okay? So how is this association or relationship formed? This association is formed using a third table, which we're going to call the article categories table. And this article categories table is a completely separate model. It's going to have its own model file and table, and all it'll do is it will store article ID and category ID in each row. So let's look at the first example. The first row has article ID 5, category ID 2, which means there's a relationship between this article with article ID 5 and this category with category ID 2. So article 5 has title vacation finally, description is vacations here, category 2 is lifestyle, okay? So there is a relationship. Second one, we have article ID 3, category ID 1. So here we have article second group and then description second group article. And that is associated with this category ID 1, which is news. Okay? Then you have the same article again, article ID 3, right here, second group article. And that is associated with this category number 4 as well, which is sports. And then the next one, you have article ID 1, which is first article. What a good first article. Associated with category ID 4, which is sports as well. Okay? Notice how the relationship is saved and formed. You basically add a row that includes the ID of the article and then the ID of the category. And then you have a way of basically referencing which article belongs to which category and which category has which article. Some examples of this: doctors and patients. You can have a patient who's the patient of multiple doctors. Similarly, a doctor can be seeing multiple patients. You can have projects and employees. You can have a project that has many employees involved in it. Then each individual employee could be part of multiple projects. In social media, for example, you can have followers and followees. You can have one person being followed by many other individuals. And then you can have those individuals being followed by a lot of other individuals. So these are examples of many-to-many associations. All right, and this is the model that we're going to use. We're going to have an article categories table, an article category model, and that's going to form our many-to-many association between articles and categories. All right, so how are we going to do this? How are we going to implement this in our application? We're going to implement this while learning how to test and building a testing framework for this. And these are the tests that we're going to be exposed to. We're going to be exposed to unit tests, where we'll test individual units of our category model. And basically, unit tests are used mainly for models and testing individual units. For example, when you have to ensure that a validation is working. Then we'll also use functional tests, which mainly refers to controller tests, which test that a function is working. For example, a before action for a controller is working when a non-logged in user is trying to perform an action to test that that action is being blocked or the user is being redirected correctly. And then finally, integration tests, which basically test full features from start to finish. For example, you have a business process of a user signing up for the application. So an integration test is going to simulate that entire process. And we're going to use all three while we add categories to our application. So to summarize, these are the important things to remember. Starting now, you are a junior Rails developer. You've been hired by this startup, which has built this successful Alpha blog. Alpha blog has lots of users and articles. Therefore, any new features have to be thoroughly tested. They haven't used automated tests before, but that's changing going forward. And CEO wants automated tests on new features, so our categories will have to include automated testing of some kind. Okay? So, without further delay, let's dive right in the beginning of the next lecture. See you there. Hello and welcome back. So we're going to get started with our category model in this video. So first of all, look at the app directory for your Alpha blog application. If you scroll down, you'll see this test folder. And this is where we're going to store all our tests. If you expand this, you'll see this is neatly organized into different folders. You have controllers, you have helpers, you have models, you have integration, all neatly organized. So first thing is we're going to work on models. So right click here, create a new file, and this will be for the category model, which we're going to work on. So category, singular, just sticking with naming conventions here, underscore test.rb, okay? And this will be for your category model. Pull it up. And with all test files, first thing you're going to do is require space and within quotes, test underscore helper, close quotes, okay? And then class, so the class name, and this is category test. So camel case, category test, subclass from active support : test case, and then end. Okay? So here's your category test template. Now, what do we want to do in our category test? We want to test for our category model, right? That we're able to create a new category. So what you can use at first is a key method. It's called setup. So define setup, and this method runs before every one of your tests. So every time you run your test, it'll run this setup method, and then it'll go on to your test. Okay? And here we're going to initiate an instance variable, and we're going to call it category. So at category equals category.new, and our category is just going to have one attribute, which is name. So name : let's say sports. So we want to have a test category of sports. That's what we're initiating here. Now remember, this is not going to hit your development database. Whatever you do here is going to happen in your test database, and that test database remains very clean. It's going to set this up, go run your tests, and then get rid of all the data. So you won't have to worry about keeping your test database clean or removing data from that. All of that happens automatically. Okay, so here's my setup method. Let's move on to our first test. So first test, you're going to say test, and then within quotes, you're going to name your test so you can identify it. Simple enough. We're just going to say category should be valid, close quote, and then do, and then end. Whatever you write here would be the test for this. So what we're going to use here is called an assertion. Okay, and you can learn all about active record assertions simply going to Google and type in active record assertions. And right here, the first link that shows up, guide.rubyonrails.org. Here is some information on testing, the different kinds of testing that we briefly spoke about in the last video. And it walks you through a good amount of available assertions and methods. Okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to simply look to see if this @category instance variable is valid. All right? So assert space @category.valid ? Save that. And that is our test. Basically, can we initiate a new category instance variable and if it's valid? So let's run our test at this time. To run this test, simply type in your command line from your application folder, rake space test. So your test ran and you got an error. Your error says name error uninitialized constant category test for category. Basically, this model does not exist. If you look at your app models, you don't have a category model. And we know why, because we didn't create it yet. So our aim at this point is to make this test pass. We need to be able to initiate @category instance variable and assert that it's valid. So to make it pass, simply right click on model folder, new file, and we're going to call it category.rb. And then pull it up. Class category, subclass from active record : base, end. Here's our category model. Save that. So that should be enough to make our test pass. So let's run rake test again. Okay, now we have a different error. Now it's saying could not find table categories. So since you have a category model, it's looking for categories table and it can't find it. Okay, so we know a solution to that. We're going to generate a migration, Rails, generate migration, create _ categories. Okay, it created this migration file. So let's pull it up. DB migrate, latest migration file. Okay, create table category, do T. We know that the only attribute we want for our table categories is name. So T dot type string colon name. And then of course T timestamps. Just so we have the created at and updated at. Save that. Now let's create the table by running rake db migrate, rake db colon migrate. Okay, it created table categories, and we can check that out if you go to your db schema file. There's my articles table, here's my categories table. I have a column name. Okay, so let's see what's happening to our tests now. Back to my category test, I'll simply type in rake test. Aha, so I have one run, one assertion, no failures, no errors. My test has passed. So I know now that I can initiate a category instance variable and it will be valid. And my assertion is true. All right, and you can test this out by going to the Rails console. You can go to Rails console and do category equals category.new, and we'll say name sports. It created it. Perfect. It initiated an in-memory category object. I'm going to exit out. Now let's think of some validations. Okay, right now our category model has no validations, and we're simply testing that we can create a add category instance variable and it can be completely empty. We're not enforcing presence of name. We're not enforcing any validations for name. So let's go ahead and build those. So test name should be present, do. And what do we want here? At category.name. So over here, we're grabbing the instance variable at category and we're setting the name. Let's set it to empty. Okay, empty string. And what do we want to test? We want to test that now this category should not be valid. All right. And how do we test a negative assertion? Assert underscore not at category dot valid question mark. So basically, if this returns true, my test will fail because this is expecting a false return. So if this is not valid, then this test will pass. Okay? Now, since I've set the name to empty, I want this test to pass for my validation to pass. So I'll save that. Run your test. Okay, I have a failure. It said expected true to be nil or false. So basically, it got true at category.valid because we don't have any validations for name being present, and he was expecting it to be nil or false. All right, so let's add this validation to our category model. So right here, we're going to say validates colon name presence colon true. Save that. Run our test again. Okay, now it's passing. Now I cannot create a valid category without having a name. Perfect. What's the next validation that we want for our category? Next thing we want to do is that name should be unique. Okay, so test name should be unique. Do. Basically, you can't have two categories have the same name, and we want to enforce that. And how are we going to do that? First, what we'll do is we'll save this at category instance variable. Okay, so at category dot save. What this will do is it'll hit the test database first, because right now here we're just initiating a new one. We're not hitting the test database with it. So at category.save, then we'll initiate a new category. So category2 equals category.new, and we'll give it the same name. name colon space within quotes sports. And then we'll say assert not space category2 dot valid question mark. So what we're saying is category 2 should not be valid because we already have a category with the name sports. So we should not be able to create a second category with the same name sports, meaning our assertion is going to expect a false or nil from this. So save that. Run the test again. We have a failure, expected true to be nil or false. So since we don't have a uniqueness validation yet, this is actually creating this category 2, and we definitely don't want that. So let's go to our category model, and we'll say validates underscore uniqueness underscore of space colon name. Save that. This will ensure that name is unique. So let's run our test again. Now our test is passing. Perfect. So now we have name uniqueness enforcement. Now 2 more things I'm going to add. I'm going to add test name should not be too long. Do. And then the next one, name should not be too short. Do. All right, so how are we going to test this? So at category.name, and I'll simply do this. A, okay, so the string A, and then I'll multiply it by 26 or however much you want in your model. I'm basically going to say that the maximum that a name can be is 25 characters, okay? And this will simply put 26 occurrences of A, one after the other, to create a string of 26 A's. So this should fail. So assert not at category.valid. Right now this test will fail because we don't have this validation yet. And then at category.name will enforce that the minimum character should be 3 for name. So I'll put a string of 2 A's, and then similarly assert not at category.valid. Save that. So these 2 tests are saved. Let's run them. I have 2 failures. First one is name should not be too short. Name should not be too long. Both of them are failing. So let's add this validation. Over here where it says validates name, presents true, I'll put a comma and I'll say length colon space open curly brace space minimum colon 3 comma maximum colon 25. So let's save that. Let's run our test. Okay, so now all of our tests are passing. Perfect. So we have built this category model and the associated categories table by using test-driven development here, where we've specified which tests it should be passing, and we started them in a failed state and then built the validation or added the code to our app to make the test pass one by one. Okay? And if you want to test it out, hop on Rails console. Let's say, we'll say category equals category.new, and we'll put an empty name. Then we'll say category.save. Notice how it says rollback transaction. It didn't hit the database. We'll say category.errors.full_messages. It says name can be blank. Name is too short. Minimum is 3 characters. All right. So this way you can create a couple more from your console and test out some of the validations if you like. Okay? So our category model and our categories table and my validations for the category model are working so far. Perfect. So I'll exit out. And we'll continue with this approach as we build our category functionality in the next video. I'll see you there. All right, welcome back. So now we have a valid category model and table, and we're able to create categories from our Rails console. So now we're going to switch to the browser or the user interface of our application. We also know that all of our browser requests are handled by our routes, which route them to the appropriate controller action, right? So we're going to create a controller test. So back here in your folders, test controllers, we're going to right click, new file, and we're going to call this categories underscore controller underscore test.rb. And then pull it up. All right. So as always, require space within quotes test underscore helper. And we'll say class categories controller test subclass. Now this is slightly different from your model test. This is action controller : test case. If you remember, in your category test, you had active support test case, but for controller test, it's action controller test case. All right, and then end. All right, so what is the first test that we want our controller to do? We want to ensure that we have all the routes and those routes are accessible for the different actions that we're going to have. And for categories, we know that we're going to have a listing of categories. We're going to have a category show page that lists out all the articles in a category eventually. And we also know that we want to be able to create new categories. So there should be a new action as well. So first test will be test within quotes should get categories index do. Then I should be able to get the new action. So test should get new within quotes do. And then the third one I want is the show action. So test should get show do. End. Save that. All right, so now let's fill our tests. Should get categories index is first. So simply put get space. Now get is the HTTP verb. So get space :index. And then assert underscore response space :success. Meaning get index and ensure that the response you get is success, that you're able to get index. All right. Similarly, for should get new, get new, assert response :success. Same thing here, get show, assert response :success. Save that. Let's run our tests. Rake test. Okay, we have errors. Let's see the first one. Okay, so if you look at the errors, controller is nil. All right, we don't have a categories controller. So let's go ahead and build that. So over here, under my controllers, right click, new file, categories controller.rb, and then pull up categories controller, class categories controller, subclass from application controller, and save that. Let's run our test again. Okay, so what does it say? I'm going to move this a little bit. Okay, so error. No route matches action show controller categories. No route matches action new. No route matches action index. We don't have any routes for these actions that we're trying to get access to. So let's go to our config routes.rb file. And over here, we're going to say resources space colon categories. And we're also going to add an additional item here, which is not part of our test, but we'll add it anyway. We don't want to have the delete action for categories. So I'll just say comma except colon space open square bracket colon destroy close square bracket. Save that. Rake test. All right, what do our errors say now? We still have this error that says no route matches action show for categories. Then the action new could not be found for categories controller, and the action index could not be found for categories controller. Okay, so let's go to our categories controller. And over here, we're going to say define index and define new and define show end. Save that. Over here, we'll run our test again. Now we have a different set of errors. It says missing template categories new. Okay, missing template categories index. Still no route matches for show. Now remember, for show, you actually need the ID of the specific category whose page you're trying to go to. Okay, so we'll handle that later. First, we have these two tests that are failing: missing template category new and index. So let's go ahead and build the views. So under app views, we don't have a categories folder. So right click, new folder, we'll say categories. And within categories, right click, new file, new.html.erb. Right click, new file, index.html.erb. Then right click, new file, show.html.erb. Okay, so now we have everything that's working except the no route matches for categories show, which means in our categories controller test, now we are getting this response of success from both the index and the new. Now let's look at our show. This test that we have should get show. So now to get the correct route to generate for our show action, what we need is an actual category. Because remember, to generate a route for show, you actually need the ID of the resource, which in this case is category that you are trying to get access to. So over here, we're going to define a setup method. So define setup. And within it, we're going to create a category. So at category equals category.create. And we're using create instead of new because we want it to create and hit the test database. And name, we'll say colon sports. All right. Now we'll have a valid @category instance variable available to our tests. So should get show, what we need to do here is we need to pass in the ID of our @category that we just created. So how do we do that? Over here, you're going to put a parentheses. The first argument will be colon show, comma, and then you want to pass in the ID of @category. So this will be in a hash format. So open curly brace, and within quotes, ID space hash rocket which is equals right arrow, and we want to send it the category dot ID. Close curly brace, close parentheses. All right. And this will generate the route for showing this category. So let's see if that passes now. Save that. Rake test. Perfect. So 8 runs, 8 assertions. All of our controller actions we wanted to get a response of success from are passing, are getting that success response. So we have an index, we have a new, and we have a show. Okay, perfect. And that's all I wanted to cover in this video. In the next one, we'll start with an integration test and creating a new category. See you there. Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at integration tests, which is my personal favorite, because you get to test out an entire feature from start to finish. And in this video, we're going to look at an integration test and create a new category. So the business process we're going to test is creating a new category. Okay? So first thing, go to your test folder, and right here, integration, right click, new file. We're going to call this create underscore categories underscore test.rb. Pull it up, require space within quotes, test underscore helper, class create categories test, subclass from action dispatch : integration test, end. So notice how this is different for model test, controller tests, and integration tests. Okay, so let's move on to our test. We're going to test get new category form and create category. Do, end. So what's the first thing we want to do? We want to get new category path. So get space new underscore category underscore path. And remember, we're emulating user behavior here. So first step towards creating a new category is you need to have this new category path. Save that, run your test. Okay, we don't have any failures because we have the new category path. Then you want to assert the template. So assert underscore template categories / new. While building our controller test, we ensured this happened, but let's test this anyway. Okay, that's passing. Now, the next step is actually being able to create a category and then have it display it somewhere, right? So, how are we going to test that assertion? Well, we can do this. Assert underscore difference within quotes category, which is our class name, dot count, comma, 1, meaning there should be a difference in category count of 1 after we do this action. Do, end. And what are we going to do? We're going to post via redirect to categories path. Okay? So remember, the submission of a new form is handled by the create action, which is a HTTP post request. Okay? So HTTP post request to the categories path, which gets directed to the create action. And what do we want to pass in? We need to pass in something that we're posting to that, something that we're entering, and it'll be the category name. So comma, category, : and within curly brace, we'll say name, and we'll simply say sports. Close quote, close curly brace, save that. And since we're posting via redirect, we can do this. after we perform this post action, assert template, meaning where do we send the user after this category is created? We send them to the categories listing page, so categories index, and then we want to do some other form of verification. We want to ensure that this category name is displayed, that it got created. So assert underscore match, and what we're expecting is this string sports within quotes. And where are we going to expect this? In the page that is going to be displayed. So in the categories index, since we have this category created, we want this string sports to display. So response dot body. All right. So there's a lot going on here in this integration test. So read through it a couple of times just to see how this entire process is taking place. Okay. You're going to new category path. You're getting the new form. You are posting to the new form, creating this category sports, which is redirecting you to the index page, and the index page should have sports now that you have created a category of sports displayed in the page. All right, so let's run our test. Rake test. Okay, so we have an error. It's saying the action create could not be found for categories controller. Okay, simple enough to fix. Pull up your categories controller. After new, we're going to say define create and save that. Okay, what is it saying? Action view missing template, categories create, application create. So basically it's trying to post to the categories create action and it's not getting a template. Basically nothing is going on over here. Okay, no actions have happened. So what we need to do is we need to create a form where we can submit something to the create action. Okay, so let's go ahead and build a new category form at this time. So I'll scroll up to my views. Right here, views, categories, new. This will be my new category form. And to see how this looks, I'm going to start my Rails server. So I will start it right here, Rails s-b. And then preview. And I'll go to the new categories form. So categories/new. Notice how I get the page, but there's nothing there because my new HTML ERB is completely empty. So here, I'll give it a title, h1 align equals center. And I'll say create new category, h1. And what is the template that we want to use? We want to stick to the styling theme we've been using so far in our application. So simply go to your users view and then go to your form for users. Just copy this whole thing. Command C. Then over here, Command V. And we don't need these two, the div class row and call XS12. Our form 4 is actually going to give that to us. Delete that. And fix the indentation a little bit. Command left square bracket twice. All right, so right away, we see that we're rendering shared errors, which is fine. But the object we're passing is user. Well, this is the new category form, so it's not going to be user, it's going to be at category. Now over here, we'll say form 4 at category, HTML class, form horizontal, role form, all this is good. Label should be category. And then text field is fine, but it's going to be category. Whoops, this should not be category, this should be name. Category is my model, but the attribute that we're doing this for is the name, since our category has a name. All right, so name, class, form control, placeholder, not enter username. We'll say category name. Okay? All right, we don't need email password, but we do need the submission below. So I'll get rid of this email and password fields, delete that, and then delete this up to the div class for the submission, delete. Okay, now for the submit, we don't have to deal with new record or existing record. So I will get rid of all this. Delete and space. Okay, cancel request is also fine. So I'll save that. Let's see how that looks. Reload. Okay, I have a syntax error. I left a parentheses here, I think. Yep, right here. In the submit class, there's no need for this. Closing parentheses, so save that. Reload. Okay, so object errors any in our errors partial because we don't have this at category instance variable. So we'll initiate this in our new action. So I'll pull up my categories controller, define new, at category equals category.new. Save that. Back here, reload. Okay, there's my form. It's showing up. Create new category. I have name. I have create category. So let's run our test suite now, since we're getting the new form. So I'll create a new terminal window. And navigate over to my blog. And then rake test. I'm still going to have the same error because all I've done is create the new form. I haven't handled the form submission or anything in our create action, which we'll take care of now. Now, one thing I do want to show you is instead of when you do rake test, it runs all your tests. What if you wanted to run a single test? And you can do this, rake space test, and then specify the route for your test. So test, integration, create categories test.rb. Okay, so then it runs simply the test that you provided. All right. Anyway, back here we have the same error. So let's handle the form submission. Over here, let me enter in nothing. Create category. Missing template categories create. So in our create action, at category equals category dot new, and then remember we have to whitelist name, so we're going to need a private method. We're going to call it category underscore params, and then if at category dot save, then something else render new end. All right, so now we have to define private, and within it define category params, and we're going to say params dot require top level key, which is our category dot permit, and we're going to permit within parentheses name, because that's all we're passing in. That's all we need to whitelist. Whoops, I put it in the wrong place. I put it above show. So private, I'm going to, now if you have this situation, then show will be private and only accessible to the categories controller. We definitely don't want this. So I'm going to Command X and then put it below show. Command V. Anything you put below private, that method will only be available to that controller. All right, so let's handle what if it saves successfully. If the category saves successfully, we want to give a flash success message and we want to say category was created successfully, and we want to redirect to the index path. So categories path, that's the categories index path. So let's see what's happening to our test now. So if I simply run the integration test, okay, so now we have a different failure. The failure is in our test, we're expecting sports to match in our response body. Remember, in our create categories test, we're saying that wherever the redirect goes to, which in this case is the categories listing page, we need to see sports, which we're not seeing. So this is the output of that whole page, and it can't find sports in there, okay? That means it's able to successfully create a category, it's just not doing what it's supposed to do afterwards. So up to here is passing. So let's work on this right now. So as you know, the listing is handled by the index view. So views, categories, index, HTML, ERB. I'll pull it up. Right here, I'm going to give it a title. H1 align equals center. And I'll say listing all categories. And then close the H1 tag. And we basically want to go through each category and list them. So embedded Ruby, we're going to have a categories instance variable dot each do category, then pipe, close embedded Ruby, end. We want to give it a UL tag, and we want to call it class within quotes listing. Say div class equals row, div class equals well call md -4, and then call md offset -4, close quote. Then we'll give it a li class equals article title. Again, we're using styling that we already used for other items within our application so far. And then embedded Ruby equals link to within quotes pound open curly brace. We want to display the category name. So category dot name close curly brace close quote, and we want to send this to the category path category. So basically the category show page the link should go to. All right, close embedded Ruby, close the li tag, close the div tag, close the div tag for row, then close the UL tag. Okay, save that. So now there should be the name in the category listing page that we just created. So let's run our test again. We'll run the integration test. One error, undefined method each for nil class. So why are we getting this? We're getting this because we have this at categories instance variable. And if you look at your categories controller, in our index action, we haven't initiated this. So at categories equals category.all. Save that. Perfect. So we're getting no failures. Now, if we run our entire test suite, all right, everything's working, no failures. So let's test this entire process out from our browser. All right, so categories /new, create category. I will leave this empty, create category. I'm getting my validation errors. I'll say sports, create category. Category was created successfully, perfect. And listing all categories, sports, and it's a link. Now I don't have anything in my show category page, so it's empty, but sports is showing up. Now I want this to be in the center, so I'll put a div align center in my index right here. Div align equals center. and then tab all of this over. Save that. Reload. Perfect. All right. So back here, I'll shut down my server. So now we have successfully implemented the ability to create a category from the UI, and we did that by first creating the integration test for it to test out the whole process, which is now passing. All right, perfect. And that's all I wanted to cover in this video. I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back. In the last video, we added the ability to create a category and the associated integration test to ensure that our functionality was working. In this video, we're going to add a scenario where what if invalid information is being entered while creating the category, in which case the category should not be created. So let's add this to our create categories test, and we'll call this test invalid category submission results in failure. Okay? Do and okay. So I'm simply going to copy this template that I have. Command C, Command V. So first I'm going to new category path. I'm asserting the template, categories new, assert difference, where I'm looking for difference in category count of 1. In this scenario, I don't want a change in my category count. So instead of assert difference, what I'll do is assert underscore no underscore difference in category.count, and I will get rid of the comma and the 1. So assert no difference category.count do post via redirect categories path do, and then category name over here I'll change to empty string. And if it fails, if you look at our categories controller, if it fails, I simply render the new template again. So that's what I want. I want to render the new template, but I also want to ensure that I'm getting my validation messages showing up, right? So back here in our create categories test, I'll do assert template instead of categories index. This is going to be categories new. And here, next, I want to ensure that my validation messages are showing up. So what I'll do is I'll look for the title and the body from my errors partial. Okay? So assert select within quotes h2 dot panel dash title, and I'll tell you where I'm getting this from in a second, and then assert underscore select within quotes div dot panel dash body. I'm looking for the existence of these two things. Okay, now where am I getting this from? If you look at views shared in your errors partial right here, notice how I have h2 and then the class is panel title, and then I have a div and the class is panel body. I'm looking for the existence of these two. This is how the errors partial shows up on the page. So if I go back to my create categories test right here, this is how you reference that. To look for the existence of that, you give it h2 dot and then the class name you gave it, which is panel title, and then the div with class panel body. So if those two show up, I know that my errors partial is being rendered. Okay, let's run our test. Since we have the validation for this, let's see what happens. We'll do rake test. Okay, everything is passing. Now, to be accurate in our test and in the syntax we use, over here, notice how post via redirect. Now, after this post, we're not really redirecting, right? We're asserting the new template again. So this method, just to be syntactically correct, I'm simply going to say post. Post. since I'm not redirecting. Okay, save that. Let's run it again. Perfect. So our tests are still passing, including this test for invalid category submission with the errors display. All right, great. I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to add an integration test for our category listing page. Okay? So scroll over to your test folder and then under your integration folder, create a new file and call it list_categories_test.rb. Pull it up. And over here, I will copy over my create categories test right here. So I have all the code from there. Command C. Command V, and I'm missing an R on top. Okay, and then I'll delete all this info within it. So the first thing I need to do is I need to define a setup method to create a couple of categories. So define setup end, and I'll say at category equals category dot create. And then name, I'll say sports. At category 2 equals category.create. And then name, I'll say programming. So that's my setup method. So let's write the test. Test should show categories listing. Do, end. Now, first thing I need to do in my integration test is get to the categories listing page. So get categories_path. And if at any time you have confusion about where I'm getting these from, again, you can do rake routes to view all your routes. Then I want to assert template within quotes categories/index. And then what I want to do is I want to test that all my categories are being listed, and not only that, that they are actual links that link to the category show page. Okay? So how do we do that? We do that by using this method. Assert_select within quotes a open square bracket href equals question mark close square bracket close quote. So we want to select a link and we want to ensure that the link is to this category_path. And remember, the show page, you need to send in the category variable. And since we used create, we know that we're going to have an ID for it. So this route should work at category. And then the text that it should display. So text : at category.name, so that the link should say sports. Okay, and then we want to do the same thing again. So assert select within quotes a within square bracket href equals question mark close square bracket close quote category_path at category 2, since that's our second category object that we created, close parentheses, comma, and the text should say at category2.name. Save that. Let's run our test. Okay, we have an error here. Category.count didn't change by 1, expected 3, actual 2. Okay, let's look at this. What's going on? Categories test new category form and create category. So we have an error in our create categories test. Over here, we copied this over there. Did we change anything? Category.count do, name sports, create categories test, list categories test. Let's run it again. Okay, so I think what's happening here is in our list categories test, we are creating this instance variable of category and we're naming it sports, okay? And I think that's where the conflict is coming from, because in the create categories test, I'm trying to post via redirect, and I think it may not be changing because the name is sports again. So let me see if that's correct. I will change this to, let's say, books. Save that. Let's run our test. Okay, so that was indeed the issue, because at category already had category create sports that was hitting the test database, and before it had finished running my tests and purging the database basically, when it tried to post this one with the same name, the category count didn't change by 1 since sports already existed. Okay, so now that we have passing integration tests for list categories, let's add pagination to our categories listing page, okay? So we have our index.html ERB for categories. Let's add pagination to this so it looks good. I'm going to start my server and I'll do it in this new terminal. So Rails s-b. Okay, so I'm going to reload this page. It's still working, perfect. Back here. To add pagination, all I'll do is embedded Ruby equals will paginate, close embedded Ruby, and this will look for at categories instance variable, which we already have. And then after the end over here, another one, embedded Ruby equals will underscore paginate, close embedded Ruby, save that. But one thing, in order to use pagination, remember we have to update what we're passing in for at categories. So in our categories controller.rb file over here, where you're creating at categories, we have to change this. So if you remember, this is going to be dot paginate. Again, this is standard pagination syntax that we used in articles and users earlier. So dot paginate within parentheses page colon params open square bracket colon page close square bracket and then comma space per underscore page. I'll say 5 here as well. Close parentheses. Save that. All right. Now, first thing I'll do, now that I've made this update, is I'll run my test suite to make sure that I didn't break anything. Okay, so everything's working. Perfect. Now, if I go over here to my server, I only have one category. So at this point, I'm going to pause this video and create 6 or 7 more categories. And if you're following along, I suggest you do the same. And the way to do that, since we don't have a link yet added to the new page, is over here, categories/new. Okay, so go ahead and enter in 6 or 7 more while I pause this video. And I'll see you in a couple of seconds. Okay, welcome back. So I've added 5 so far. I'll add the last one, which will cause our pagination to kick in. So right here, /new. The last one I'll say travel, then create category. Perfect, got created. There's my pagination. The last one was travel, so I'll click on it, travel, perfect. Now if I click on an individual category, it goes to the show page, which is empty, which we'll work on later. Okay, perfect. So it's working exactly how we want. So back to my IDE, I'll ensure one last time that I run my tests and everything passes. It does. Now we haven't made a commit in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and commit my code. So git status, and I'll see lots of updates because we added all of these tests and modified some existing items as well, added entire categories feature so far. So git add -a, git commit -m, add categories, model, and tests within quotes. I'm keeping it kind of vague because I've done a lot without committing. So, which is actually not a great idea. You should be making more frequent commits, but we'll do so going forward. Hit enter. And now that we've saved our code, git push to push our code to our GitHub repository. Perfect. And that's all I wanted to cover in this video. I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back. In the last video, when we were initially running our tests with this list categories, the first category I had named it as sports, and we were running into an error which was saying that the user count was not changing when it was running the create categories test, okay, with that same name of sports. And that confused me a little bit because each test runs independently. And there's no reason why this instance variable of category with name sports should have hit while running this create categories test where we named it sports as well, okay? So what happened? What happened was I had copied over the create categories test and then pasted it here, and we built our list categories test. What I didn't change was the name, the class name. Class name is still create categories test for my list categories test. Since this is the same class, this is an instance variable, it basically ran both of them one after the other without purging the test database. They didn't run as independent tests. They ran as a single one after the other due to the class name. Okay, they did not run independently. So that's something important to remember. So notice here, if I change this back to sports, save that, rake test, I get the error, it's failing. That's because of this class name. If I change the class name to list categories test, which is what it should have been, save that, now it should run independently. So I'll do rake test again. Perfect. Now that is how it should have been running the first time around. All right. So since we corrected this, I'm going to make a commit. So git add -a, git commit -m, fix list categories test bug, close quote, hit enter. Now git push to push our code to our repository. All right, great. I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back. So now we have an ability to create new categories from the UI, and then we have a listing page where we display all categories. But notice here my server's running. I'm not logged in, yet I can access this page. And we don't want that. Not only do we not want that, but we don't even want regular users to have the ability to create new categories. Your company feels that creating new categories should be restricted to only admins, okay? And now this restriction would be handled at the controller level. So let's go ahead and look at our controller test right now. Over here, if you go to your test controllers and pull up your categories controller test, right here, we're going to add a new test. And the test is going to be should redirect create when admin not logged in. Okay? So basically, if an admin user is not logged in when this activity is taking place, then it should redirect right away. Okay? So how do we write a test for that? First, we can simply do this. Assert no difference in our category.count, do post to create action, and then category colon, open curly brace, space, name colon, within quotes, sports, close quote, close curly brace, end. So what are we looking at here? Assert no difference in the category count when this action happens. Post to the create action the category with name of sports. And then the redirect should happen. So assert redirected underscore to categories underscore path. So what are we saying here? What are we saying is in this test, okay, there is no logged in user. So at the beginning of this test, if you look at this, we don't have a logged in user. We're not setting that up anywhere. So when you try to post to the create action category with name of sports, you should get a redirect to the category's path. This action should not happen. The category count should not change. Okay, so let's run this test. We'll run rake test, controllers, categories, controller, test.rb. Okay, it's failing. Expected response to be a redirect, but was a 200. Basically, it was able to post to create action category with name of sports, and it did not get redirected. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that functionality to our categories controller. So I'll pull up my categories controller over here. So how do we add those restrictions in our controller? Remember, we add them with a before action. So before action, I'm going to say require underscore admin. And what are the actions that I need them for? I need them for new, create, okay? I don't need them for index and show. So I'll say except colon space open square bracket colon index comma space colon show close square bracket. Save that. Now we don't have this require admin method, so let's go ahead and build that. Under private, I'm going to say define require underscore admin. So what should our require admin method be? First, we should check that the user is not logged in. If they're not logged in, immediately redirect. So if not logged in, question mark, then flash open square bracket colon danger close square bracket equals only admins can perform that action close quote and then redirect to categories path and then end. So that's ending the if block and then the require admin. All right. So if not logged in, immediately redirect. Now we need to check for admin. So if logged in or open parentheses logged underscore in question mark and not current underscore user dot admin question mark and then close parentheses, save that. So logged in and current user is not an admin, then redirect. So in order for this condition to pass, you're going to have to be a logged in user and you're going to have to be an admin. Only then do you have access to this new and create actions. All right, so let's run our test. So what happened here? Why do we have this failed test? The test that's failing is right here. It has the name test should get new from our controller test. Expected response to be a success, but was 302. So what is that controller test? Let's take a look at our categories controller test file over here. Should get new right here. So we are restricting non-logged in users from having access to creating new categories. We're restricting them from even getting the new page when you see this right here, we are only saying that you don't need to be an admin for index and show. So for new even, you're going to be restricted from getting that page. So we have to update our categories controller test. Right here, we need to simulate that an admin is logged in order to get this success. How do we simulate an admin that's logged in? First, we're going to have to create an admin user in our setup method. So I'll go ahead and create @user equals user.create. And I'll say username : within quotes, John, email : within quotes, john@example.com, password : I'll say password, comma, and then admin : true. Okay, so our @user instance variable, who happens to be John, is an admin, and we created this user for our test. So now we have an admin user. But in order for this test to pass, we need to log in this user. How do we do that? At the controller level, you can directly access your session hash. So I can simply say this. I can simulate a login. Say session, open square bracket, : user _ ID, close square bracket. So I'm setting the user ID for the session to be @user, who's John, .id. Okay, so John's ID. So I'm simulating a logged in user who happens to be an admin. All right, save that. Let's run our controller test again. Perfect. So our controller test is now passing, which means we have successfully implemented this functionality where non-logged in admins cannot create new categories. If over here, if I just reload this page, notice how it says only admins can perform that action. So if I log in as any other user, let's say John Doe at example.com, password of password, and then John Doe for my application is an admin. So if I go to categories new, I have access to this page. Now I'll log out and I'll log in as a regular user. I'll say Mashur, then password, log in. Mashur is a regular user, not an admin user. So if I try to go to categories new, only admins can perform that action. Perfect. So we've successfully implemented this functionality in our app where only admins can create new categories. Now, if I run my entire test suite, you see we're going to get 2 failures because in our create categories test, we're not using logged in users who are admins before we try to create these categories. So we'll take care of that in the next video. At this point, I'll make a commit. So git add -a, git commit -m, and I'll say add admin requirement to create categories. Within quotes, hit enter. Now git push to push our code to our GitHub repository. Perfect. So in the next video, we'll take a look at our other tests and ensure that we have logged in users when we try to perform these actions. I'll see you there. Hello and welcome back. So now that we've added the requirement to have logged in admins create new categories, we have a few failing tests. Let's look at them. I'll run rake test. Okay, so the first one that's failing is this create categories test invalid category submission result, and then Basically, it was expecting this categories new, which is the get new category path, but it didn't get it. Same thing here, expecting categories new, but it didn't get it, okay? So both of these tests can't get to the get new category path. So what we need to do is we need to create an admin user for this test and then log them in, all right? So first thing, so over here on top, I'll define a setup method, and then I'll create an admin user. I can simply pick up the user I created from my categories controller test right here. I'll copy this line. Command C. Command V. Okay, so now I have an admin user. Now over here, I can't simply do what I did in my controller test because I can't get to the session hash directly, okay? In order to set that, I actually have to simulate a user, this user logging in. Meaning, I have to log in this user without directly going to the session hash. So how are we going to do that? We'll do it like this. We'll create a method that our tests have access to and use that method to log in a user that I provide for that method. So I'll call it sign_in_as, and then I'll sign in at user who I've created right here, who's John, but I also have to provide John's password, okay? Because when this user is created, remember, this password turns to a hash digest. So if I try to post to a link without having this string, then when it posts at user.password, it'll not be this password string. It'll be the hash digest of this password string. So I'll pass in the string password. All right. And we'll do the same for this next test right here. Sign_in_as at user and then password. So let's go ahead and create this method sign_in_as. For your tests, you have this file in your test folder that's called test_helper.rb. And you can put any methods that you use for your tests in there and it'll make it available to all your tests. So right here, I'll pull it up. Right here, before the end, it says add more helper methods to be used by all tests here. So right under here, I'm going to add my helper method. Define sign_in_as, and then this will accept a user and a password, which we're going to pass in. And what do we want to do here? We simply want to post to login_path. So post to login path session : space, open curly brace. We want to pass in the email, which will be this user.email, and then password : will simply be this password right here. So password, save that. So whatever you pass in the password string will be what gets posted to the form that's available in the login path. So you're basically simulating a user signing in over here by submitting their credentials. Okay? Save that. Now back to our create categories test. So now this should work. Sign in as, and then go through this whole path. So let's run our tests. Rake test to run all tests. Perfect. So all of our tests are passing right now. Okay, great. So now we're going to switch our attention from this to more of our UI, okay? Our user interface, so our browser. I have my server running. So I'm going to go over to my preview. Now notice here, in order to create a new category, I have to go to the categories new route. Also, to list my categories or to display a category, all of that I have to do from here. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to have that access through my navigation. So I'm going to make those updates now. So back to my IDE, I'll pull up my navigation partial. Actually, I'm going to close out of all these test helpers so I have some room here. Perfect. All right. So in my views, layouts, there's my navigation partial. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want a link here, like a drop down for categories that list all of the categories that I have. So let's add that. What I'll do is I will take this piece of code. Notice how the articles and then the action for the articles for logged in users is that format, a drop down. So I'm going to copy everything within this if logged in. Okay. So this from li class dropdown, I'm going to copy this, Command C, and right after this end, I'm going to paste that. All right. And then I'll fix this indentation, Command left square bracket. Okay. So here I'll change this from actions to categories. And then it goes into the drop-down menu. The first one is link to new article. I will change this from link to new article to link to all categories. Okay. And then the path should be categories path. And then I want to display all the categories one by one. How do I do that? I'm going to use the .each method. So embedded Ruby category.all.each do pipe category pipe close embedded Ruby, and then embedded Ruby tag again, end close embedded Ruby, and within it I want to say li open embedded Ruby tag equals link underscore to, and I want it to display the category name. So within quotes, pound, open curly brace, category dot name, close curly brace, close quote, category underscore path, and within parentheses, category, close parentheses, close embedded Ruby, close the li tag. Let me fix the tab. Okay. Save that. Let's see what that looks like. Over here, I'll reload the page. Okay, so I have the categories drop down. If I click on it, all categories and all the categories that I have. Okay, so all categories takes me to my categories page. Perfect. And then I don't have anything for my individual categories show page yet. So it just displays the page. Now back to all categories. Okay, so here I want the ability to add new category, but only for logged in admin users. So I'm going to go ahead and make that update. How do I do that? First, I'll get rid of this, another action, something else here. I don't need that. Then I have this separator. Now right above the separator, I want to say embedded Ruby if logged underscore in question mark and current underscore user dot admin question mark. Okay, close embedded Ruby tag. Then I'll leave this li role separator divider and this li with separated link right here. And then I will put embedded Ruby end, close embedded Ruby. And then I'll get rid of this other li role separator and one more separated link. I'll get rid of these two lines. Delete. Okay, perfect. Now I'll leave the separator. What do I want this separated link? What do I want this to say? I want this to go to create new category page. So I'll highlight this. Embedded Ruby equals link to create new category. Close embedded Ruby, close quote, comma, and I want this to go to the new category path. Close embedded Ruby, close the li tag. There's the end. So I'll just tab this over to fix my indentation. Command S to save. Now I'll reload this page. Okay, categories, all categories, and then the listing of categories. Now the new category link is not showing up because I'm not signed in as an admin user. So I'll log in. You have successfully signed in, and I see actions and categories here. Create new category link. If I click on it, it goes to my create new category page. Perfect. So this is working exactly how I expected. So I'll log out. Now back to my IDE. I'll go ahead and make a commit of the code. So I'll shut down the server, git add -a, git commit -m. I'll say fix tests and update navbar with categories. Close quotes, hit enter. Now git push to push our code to our GitHub repository. Perfect. All right, now that's all I wanted to cover in this video. I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed building the categories model, table, and all the UI features by utilizing unit tests, functional tests, and integration tests. So at this point, I will leave the testing up to you, okay? I would encourage you to continue adding tests as you build more features. But we're going to divert our attention to building the association between articles and categories, the many-to-many association that we spoke of earlier. Now, it always helps to take a look at the entity relationship diagram so you know what attributes to include, what to name the table, etc. So right here, we know that we're going to create article categories table. It's going to include article ID and category ID. So let's go ahead and build that. So back to our IDE, we're going to generate a migration. So Rails generate migration create _ article _ categories. Hit enter. Okay, so I'll look at my DB folder, migrate the latest file that just got created. There it is, create table article categories. And over here, I'll have t.integer. Remember, primary keys are always integer. T.integer, and I'll say colon article ID, and then t.integer colon category ID. Save that. I'm not going to use timestamps for this table, but if you want to, you're more than welcome to go ahead and add timestamps. So I'll run rake db migrate to create this table. Perfect, table's created. Now I have to create the model file in order to test out my connection. So I'll go to app, models, right click, new file, and I'll call it article _ category.rb. I'll pull it up. Class article category subclass from active record : base, and save that. Okay, so that should be enough to test out our connection to the table. So I'll hop on Rails console and I'll type in article category.all. Okay, there it is, article categories. It's working perfectly. If I type in article category, it gives me ID, article ID, and category ID. Perfect. So I'll exit the console at this time. So to build the association between articles and categories, what I have to do is this article category model belongs to both. So belongs _to article. Remember, belongs to, this should be singular, and then belongs to category. Save that. And now I'll pull up the article model. So right here, I'll say has _many article categories, because that's the many side, and has _many categories, comma, space, through space, article categories. Save that. So what I'm saying here is this has many article categories, so it sets up that connection, and then has many categories through article categories. Okay? So similarly, I'll pull up the category RB file. On top over here, I'll say has _many article categories, and has _many articles, comma, space, through space, article categories. Save that. Now, what does that allow us to do? I'm going to hop on the Rails console and show you. So right here, I'll actually make this full screen. Okay. So Rails console. All right. So I'll do something like this. Article.all. Okay. I have all my articles here. Let's grab the last article. Article equals article.last. Okay. Now, to see the categories that this article is associated with, which are none, but at least to see it, I can do something like this. Article.categories. Check it out. The query worked. It returned empty because it doesn't have any categories, but the query did work. So it built the association. Okay. Similarly, whoops, I accidentally exited my console. I'll hop back in. I'm going to go to the top of the page. And to do that, remember, just hit Control L. Okay. So let's look at the other side. So category.all. So I have a few categories, and my first one is sports. So I'll say category equals category.first. Okay. Now category.articles. I have no articles in this category, but remember, I have an article variable that I've grabbed. Whoops. Doesn't look like I do. So let me grab one. Article equals article.last. Okay. So now I have a category, which is sports, and I have an article, which is my last article. What if I want this article to be part of my category sports? What do? I can do this. Category.articles, and then use the shovel operator, article. So basically, I'm grabbing this article object, and I'm using the shovel operator to assign it to my category. If I hit enter, okay, so the association formed. How do I test it? Let me check out my article category table. So article category.all. Notice how now there is an entry as article ID 23 and category ID 1. So I can do something like this. Category.articles, hit enter. It displays the article that is associated with this category. Then I can do article.categories, hit enter. It shows the category. So my association is working perfectly. What if I want to add another category to this article? I want this article to be associated with sports, but something else. So if I do category equals category dot last, my last category is travel. So I can do something like this: article dot categories, and then shovel in the category. So travel got associated with this category. Now if I type in article.categories, there you go. I have one category sports that it's associated with, another one travel. So right now my travel, which is category, has one article associated with it. What if I want travel to have another article associated with it? How do I do that? Category.articles, shovel in, article.find 22. Hit enter. Okay, association got formed and the article got added to my category of travel. Now if I do category.articles, now I have two articles in this category. So I hope that makes the many-to-many association clear from a database and model perspective. So now if I look at my article category table.all, you'll see that I have a few associations now. All of them are starting to form. And this table is starting to look like this. This right here, the article categories table with multiple rows with article and category IDs. All right. So our association is successfully set up. I'm going to exit the console and I'll toggle back. Perfect. Now let me go ahead and make a commit of my code at this time. Git add -a, git commit -m, add article and category association, close quote, hit enter, git push to push our code to our GitHub repository. All right, now in the next video, we're going to look at how we can add this association from the browser when we're creating articles. I'll see you there. Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to add the ability to associate a category when a user is creating an article. So first thing I'm going to do is start the server. So Rails s-b. And then I have the preview up already. So we're here, I'll reload the page. Okay, now I'll log in. Okay, now when I go to create a new article, if I go to actions, new article, I want an ability to add categories for this article based on the categories that already exist. I'm not logged in as an admin user, so I don't have the ability here to add a new category, but I want to be able to select categories in this new article creation form. So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and check out this form. And if you remember, that's in our views, articles, then form.html.erb. Okay? Now right above submit, this is where I want to add that. What I want to do is I want to display a listing of all the categories that I have available. Okay? So this is what I'll do. So I'll copy this part right here, Command C, and I'll enter in a new form group right above it, right there. So Command V, and then form group is fine. Now below it, I want to say div class equals row, and then tab this over, div class call SM offset 2, call SM instead of 10, I'll make it 8. And then the code that I want to enter in, I'll leave that as is for now. Let me make sure that I have enough closing tags. I don't, I need one more. So I'll add a div closing right there. Okay, now over here, embedded Ruby, I'll get rid of what's in here. And what I will use are checkboxes, okay? And this is the code for this. f.collection underscore check underscore boxes, and then colon category underscore IDs, comma, space, category dot all, comma, space, colon ID, comma, space, colon name, do, and then pipe CB, pipe, close embedded Ruby. Then I'll put a end tag for this. So embedded Ruby, end. Okay, so there's my block. So what do I want within it? I'll put embedded Ruby, CB dot label, open parentheses, class, colon, space, within quotes, checkbox dash inline, space, and then I'll put it a custom class, input underscore checkbox, close quote, close parentheses, space, open curly brace, CB dot check underscore box, open parentheses, class, colon, within quotes, checkbox. Okay, close quotes, close parentheses, space, plus, space, CB dot text. Okay, close curly brace, close embedded Ruby tag. Command S to save that. So what we're doing here is we're displaying checkboxes. All right, and it's going to have the name of the category right after the checkbox. And it's going to do it for all categories. All right, so category.all that are available in the application. So let's go ahead and see what this did. I'll fix my indentation a little bit here. Tab over, Command S to save. Let me reload this page. There it is. There are the checkboxes, and those are the categories that I have available in my application right now. If you look over here, click on categories, there's sports, programming, all of that, and then travel, which all of them are listed here. Okay. Now I want to handle the submission of this. And the submission of the form is handled by the create action. So I'll go over to my articles controller. So controller, articles controller, and you create new articles over here at article equals article.new article params. So what we submit from here is going to be submitted as a collection through my params hash, and it's going to be received here in article params. And then my add article object will know what to do in order to assign that. And that will happen because of the association that we already have with the many-to-many association with the category model, okay? Only thing we have to do here is in article params, we have to whitelist this collection. And this collection is going to be of category IDs. How do we do that? Simple. We simply add comma category underscore IDs colon and then open and close square bracket to signify this is going to come in array form. All right. If you want to take a quick look at this, we can do that. If you look at this over here, I'll leave title and description empty and then programming and books, create article. So I get my validations. Look at the bottom, category IDs 2, 3. And then there's an empty one, which we don't have to worry about. But the two categories did get selected. And this is getting passed in array format, which is why we're whitelisting it in our article params as an array. Okay? So let's go ahead and create a valid article and see if this happens correctly. I'll go over here. I'll enter in article to test categories. Description. This is a test article for category test. Category association test. And I'll associate it with sports and lifestyle. Create article. Article was successfully created. And we don't have a display of categories in my article show page yet, so I won't see it here, but I can take a look at it from my Rails console. So I'll shut down the server. I'll go to Rails console, and then I'll grab the last article. Article equals article.last, which just got created. If I do article.categories, right there, you have name, sports, and the other one, lifestyle, which we selected. Perfect. So the association got set correctly. So I'm going to exit out of the console. Now that we can set the association at article creation time, we can divert our attention to the show page. We want this article show page to show the categories that it's associated with. Okay? And we'll take care of that in the next video. See you there. Hello and welcome back. In the last video, we added the ability to associate categories with articles when the articles are being created. And it took us to the show articles page. But notice how the show articles page does not show the categories that this article is associated with. So let's go ahead and add that. I'll go to my IDE and under app, views, and that was my article show page. So let me pull up my article show page. Here it is. So I'm going to scroll down to below where my description is. So I want the categories to show right here, okay, under the description. So over here, under my description and above my article actions, I'll enter in this code, embedded Ruby if at article.categories.any question mark, then something, and then I'll end my if branch. So if at article.categories.any, what do we want to do? We want to simply display the categories one after the other, and this is how we're going to do it. P tag categories :space, and then embedded Ruby equals, we're going to render a partial here. Render at article.categories. Close embedded Ruby. Now what happened here? At article.categories, we're not using a .each method to go through all the categories. But since there are more than one, it's going to do that automatically. Okay, this is a shortcut. You can simply say render at article categories, and it'll basically have the same effect at article.categories.each and do, and then you'd have a code block. But this will have the same effect. And then I'll close the p tag. But what this will need is a partial under categories. Okay, so I'll tab over and fix the indentation. Save that file and go to your views, categories, and right click here, new file, underscore category.html.erb. That's the partial that we're going to use. And then I'll pull it up and fill this in. I'll do a span class equals badge within quotes, and then embedded Ruby equals link to category.name category underscore path, and then I have to give it the category object, then close embedded Ruby. And then I want a space after each, because if there's more than one, I don't want them to show up right one after the other. So I'll put an and NBSP semicolon and then close the span. Save that. So let's see what that did. Over here, I'll reload the page. There it is, categories. And then it's showing the category that this is associated with. But I don't like this styling, so I'm going to fix the styling for this. So I'll pull up my custom CSS SCSS page, assets, style sheets, custom CSS SCSS. And after listing, I'll say dot badge, and then I'll give it a background color, colon, and you can select a color that works for you. I'm going to say pound CEF6F5 semicolon text dash transform colon uppercase semicolon letter dash spacing colon -1 px semicolon and font dash weight colon bold semicolon. Save that. Let's see what that looks like. Reload. Much better. Okay. And notice how this is a link. So if I click on it, it takes me to that category show page, which we don't have, but we will build that very soon. So back to my IDE. One thing I will add here is I'll add another style dot input underscore checkbox, which we added in the last video for our checkbox styling. And then input, open curly brace, within it, I'm going to say with colon auto space exclamation mark important semicolon. Save that. And this is not styling anything we're doing right now. This is styling for the input checkbox. Sometimes in PCs, I've noticed that the input checkbox doesn't style correctly, so it needs this. Okay, so next, I'll go back to my browser, and if I go to my articles listing, here are all my articles. I want this listing to display the categories that each article is associated with also. And this uses the article partial. So I'll go back to my IDE. If you go to views, if you go to articles, that was the articles index page, right? So if I pull it up, notice how it's rendering the article partial. So I'll pull up the article partial. Here it is. Here are my article actions. So right above this where it says if logged in, I'm going to add that. So embedded Ruby if article dot categories dot any question mark, then embedded Ruby end, close embedded Ruby. Within it, again, P, and we're going to say categories colon embedded Ruby equals render article dot categories. Close embedded Ruby, close the P tag, save that. I'll go back here. Now if I reload this page, none of these articles are associated with any categories because they're from before. But if I go to my last page, notice how the categories for these articles are showing up. Perfect. Now, if you remember, this article partial is also used by our user's show page. So if I go to my profile and then view your profile, which is my user show page, these listings will automatically pick up the category views. Notice here, third article, travel, the categories are showing up. Now, again, these will only show up for the ones that are actually associated with categories. But here's the best part. Because I have the ability to edit articles, this is my first article. So if I click on edit this article, and then if I associate this with categories, update article, notice how the article is now updated and has these two categories associated with it. Now if I go to my listing, the first article has the categories. So that's working perfectly. Okay. Now the last thing I want to look at is the category show page. So if you go to a category, right now we're doing nothing here. It should list all the articles that are in that category. Okay? So let's go ahead and build that. Back to our IDE. I'll go to Views, Categories. There's the category show page, completely empty. Let's build this. Now this will be very similar to my articles listing page. Okay, so if you look at articles, index, I'm just going to copy this, Command C, and then go back to my show page for categories, Command V to paste it. And over here, I'll have to do some editing. So H1 align center, this one's going to say embedded Ruby equals category colon space close quote plus at category dot name. Now I don't have this add category instance variable yet, so I have to build that. Then I'll get rid of this listing all articles part. Then I'll close the embedded Ruby tag. Okay, div align center, will paginate. Okay, so we're gonna have to work with this will paginate. And what are we going to display here? We want to display all the articles that are in this category, right? So will paginate at category underscore articles. And if you're wondering where this is coming from, we haven't defined it yet. We have to grab that, okay? Then close the div, that's fine. Render article, we can't simply render article because article is not in this folder. So we have to give it the full path. Render articles / article. And the object is going to be category underscore articles, which is the same object here. Again, this will use the article partial, which we have already updated here to display categories and everything. So back here, div align center, and then will paginate at category underscore articles. Save that. So what are the two things that we need? We need at category instance variable and at category articles instance variable. And this one needs to be in a form that will paginate will work with. So let's look at our categories controller show action. So controllers, categories controller, scroll down to the show action. So at category equals category.find within parentheses, params, and within square brackets, ID. That's pretty simple. Now at category underscore articles, we're going to say at category dot articles dot paginate open parentheses page colon params within square brackets colon page, again standard pagination syntax here, comma per underscore page 5 close parentheses, Command S to save that. Okay, so let's see what that did. Over here, I'll reload this page. There is my category show page and it's working perfectly. Category sports, and look at all the articles, and all the articles are displaying the categories. If I go to the article, this is working. All the links are working. Perfect. Now to test the pagination, I want to add another article to this category. So let me do that. I'll go to Actions, New Article, and then New Article. This is body of new article. And then I'll add it to Sports, Create Article. Okay, article was successfully created. I can see the categories. Now if I click on this category, I can either go here, Sports, or I can simply click on this. Category Sports. Whoops, I can't see the pagination. Oh, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I miscalculated. I need to add one more because I have per page 5. So I'll add another article. Test article, testing pagination. And then add it to Sports, Create Article. All right, go to Sports. There it is. There's the pagination bar. Let me go to the next page. There's this new article that I just created. Perfect. All right, so all of my views seem to be working correctly. I have my listing articles, which have the categories listing now. I'm able to create new articles with associations. I can go to my categories, display all categories. Then I can click on a category and I can see the articles that are listed in that category. If I go to all categories, so there's one more update I'd like to make at this time. If you see the category, it doesn't display how many articles are within that category. So let's quickly add that. So that's the index page for categories. So I'll scroll down, views, categories, index HTML ERB. Okay, right here where it says category name, right under this, I'll put an li tag, then small, embedded Ruby equals, pluralize, category dot articles dot count. And then I want it to use the word article for that. Then close parentheses, space, close embedded Ruby, close the small tag, and close the li tag. Command S to save. Let's see what that did. Reload. Perfect. Sports has 6 articles. Programming has 1. Books have 0. Lifestyle has 1. And if I go click on it, it goes there. Okay, great. So I'm going to go back to my IDE and let's make a commit of our code. I'll shut down the server. Git add -a, git commit -m, update all views with categories, close quote, hit enter. All right, git push to push our code to our GitHub repository. All right, great. And that's all I want to cover in this video. I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back. So our categories feature is almost complete. Here's my category listing page. Now, one thing you'll notice is that once a category is created, I don't have a way of updating that category name, right? Now, even though category creation is handled by admins, admins may make mistakes. And we want to provide a user interface by which the category name can be updated once it's created. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this. So if I go to a category, let's say sports, here's my category, sports. If I go to /edit, it's going to say action edit could not be found for categories controller. So let's start. I'll pull up my categories controller. So after create, I'll do define edit, end, then define update and end. because remember, the edit form submission will be handled by the update action. First, we have to find the category that we want to edit. So at category equals category.find params within square brackets :id. Okay, so we've initialized the instance variable, and then update, following our standard format, we'll do at category equals category.find params within square brackets id if at category.update, and we'll reuse the category params method that we already have defined. So category underscore params, then we'll do something else, we'll render the edit template again, and then end. So if successfully updated, I want to say flash within square brackets :success equals category was, actually, name was successfully updated. And then redirect to, and we'll redirect to the category show page. So category underscore path within parentheses at category. Okay? Save that. So there's my edit and update actions. Let me go ahead and try to reload the page and see what happens. We're here. Only admins can perform that action. Okay. And it's showing that because, as you know, in the categories controller, only index and show don't require admins. Everything else require admins. Okay, that's fine. So I'll log in as admin user. Whoops. All right, I've logged in and I'm admin. Now let me go to categories sports. Let's say I want to edit /edit. Missing template categories edit. All right. Basically, it can't find a template, a form for edit action. Okay. So let's go ahead and build that right here under categories. Right click, new file, and we'll call this edit.html.erb. Pull it up, and this edit HTML ERB will be virtually identical to the new HTML ERB. And what does that tell us? That tells us that we can extract this to a partial. So I'll right click, create new file under categories, and call it form.html ERB. And I'll copy all of this from my new HTML ERB, Command X, then go to my form HTML ERB, Command V, paste that, and everything should be the same because we're dealing with at category instance variable, and this is a form for at category, and below we have a submit, so everything should still be the same. I'll save the form. In the new form, I'll simply render the form partial. So embedded Ruby equals render form. Close embedded Ruby, save that. Okay, so now let me pull up my edit right here. So I'll give it a title, h1 align equals center. I'll say edit category name, and then h1, and I'll simply render. So embedded Ruby equals render within quotes form, close quotes, close embedded Ruby, save that. So now my edit and new will simply render the form, which is this. So let's see what that looks like. Over here, I'll reload the page. There is my edit category name showing up. Perfect. So if I go to categories, all categories, let's say I want to edit the name of this first category. If I click on it, I don't have a button, okay? I don't have a link anywhere that actually takes me to the edit category form. I have to go from the browser like this. Whoops, that's incorrect. Route / edit. I have to go like this. Let's say I want to make this sport. Update category. Category name was successfully updated. Now you see that category is sport and all the names have changed to sport. Okay, so the functionality is working, but I need a path. I need a path to edit this. So let's build that. This is our show category page, and I'll add it to this page. So back to my IDE. In my categories show HTML ERB, I'll add it over here. So right above the will paginate, this div align center, I will add it right here. I'll say span class equals, within quotes, badge, and then embedded Ruby equals link _2, and we'll say edit category name within quotes, and then edit category path. Then I have to give it the @category instance variable. Okay. Then close embedded Ruby, close the span class, save that. So let's see what that looks like. Over here, I'll reload the page. Okay, that doesn't look that good. So let's go ahead and fix this. I will put this in a row. So I'll say div class equals row. And then tab this over. Then close the div. Command S to save. Let's see what that did. So back here, reload the page. Okay, edit category name, perfect. It's showing up where I want. If I click on it, it takes me to the right place. All right, so back here. Now I'm logged in as admin user and I can see this link. But I have to ensure that this link is hidden from other users, which I'm not checking right now. So back here, I'll put this in an if branch. So embedded Ruby, if logged _in and current _user dot admin ? Close embedded Ruby, then show this, then embedded Ruby end, close it. Command S to save. Since I'm logged in as admin user, that should not change anything for me. Okay, edit category name. I'll click on it. I'll make it sports again. Update category. Okay, that's working. Now, since I updated my new category form by now rendering the partial, so I want to test that out also. So create new category. Category name. I'll say fishing. Create category. Okay, so that's working perfectly. Go over here, fishing showing up. If I go there, I get this link. Now let me log out and log in as a regular user, and I'm expecting this link to not be there. So log out. First, I'll go to categories, sports. That link isn't there. Now I'll log in as a regular user. So Masroor, log in. Categories, sports. Okay, perfect. It's not showing up. And if I try to go to that link from the browser, only admins can perform that action. Great. So I'll log out of here. I'll shut down my server. And let's go ahead and make a commit. So git add -a, git commit -m, add edit category feature. Close quote, hit enter. Now git push to push our code to our GitHub repository. All right, perfect. That's all I wanted to cover in this video. I'll see you in the next one.
Hello and welcome back. At this point, I have to congratulate you on a job well done. You have successfully implemented categories for articles in your application. You've also been exposed to and been able to implement automated testing in the process. It is now time to deploy our latest features to production. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So back to the IDE, make sure you're in the blog app, and I'll do a quick check to ensure that I have no updates that I need to commit. Okay, perfect. Now git push Heroku master to deploy our app to Heroku. Okay, great. It's deployed. Now let's run our migrations for Heroku. So Heroku run rake db :migrate. Hit enter. All right, perfect. So our app's deployed. Let's go check it out. Here's my link. Command C. Over here. I'll paste it. Hit enter. Okay, so let me go ahead and log in as my admin user. Log in. Okay. Now I'll go to categories, all categories, create new category. Perfect. So now I'd recommend creating a few categories, updating a few articles to add categories to them, and test out your application. Also, don't forget to post the URL from your Heroku app right here to the discussions area. And if you have a blog, I'd also recommend creating and posting a link to your app over there to share your progress. In the next section, we'll take on creating a new application, but this time we'll do it with more speed. We'll use some gems available that make a rapid deployment easy and also utilize generators. At this point, since you know the inner workings of a Rails application and how to bend the code, you'll really enjoy how rapidly you can prototype things while understanding what everything is doing. And as a homework assignment, I want you to create feature tests for two things that our app currently does successfully. I want you to write an integration test for your user sign-up. So basically ensuring users can successfully sign up to your application, and also an integration test for successful creation of an article. You can reference the process we used to create the integration test for our categories to accomplish this task. Okay, congratulations again, and I'll see you in the next section.